by KEZI show officers have discovered important facts during their investigation. For instance, Elizabeth Downs says a shaggy-haired stranger shot at her and her 3 children May 19th. She says the man fired the shots when she wouldn't hand over her car keys. One child was killed in the shooting. However, the petition prepared by the Children's Services Division and the district attorney says, quote, Christy Ann Downs states there was no male stranger present during the time of the shooting, unquote. Christy apparently made the comment after she recovered from a stroke. The mother's attorney, Jim Jagger, hasn't been able to see the police reports. He's filing papers tomorrow to find out exactly what the police know.
What Diane Downs wanted more than anything else was to have children. She got her wish, but her dream turned into a twisted tragedy when she was sentenced to life for shooting her children because her boyfriend didn't like kids. Even today, 5 years later, her former husband would like to see her pay the ultimate price.
Executed. That's what I was hoping for. That's what I still feel that they should have done that, you know. We'd all be better off.
But it was the children who would pay for what Diane wanted.
On March 19, 1983, at 10 p.m., a 27-year-old woman arrived at the McKenzie-Willamette Medical Center seeking help. The woman, tall and slender, with blonde hair and enormous deep blue eyes, was covered in blood and had a gunshot wound in her arm. Her children, Christy 8, Cheryl 7, and Daniel 3, were severely injured in the back seat. The woman, named Elizabeth Diane Downs, claimed that she had been attacked by a man with thick bushy hair who had threatened her with a weapon to steal her car. Doctors worked tirelessly to save the children's lives. However, over time, they began to notice that this mother seemed not concerned at all about her children and appeared to be more distressed about the blood in her car than for other reasons. Elizabeth Diane Frederickson was born on August 7, 1955, in Phoenix, Arizona, as the only child of a very conservative marriage. Her parents, Wesley and Willowdean Frederickson, of English descent respectively, were a couple with extremely strict and traditional values, to the extent that during her early years, they forbid her from using makeup or dressing like the other girls her age. It is said that Diane's childhood was extremely traumatic, and her father, whom she has described as a strict, rigid, and authoritarian man, did not allow her to spend time with her mother. On more than one occasion, it has been claimed that she was raped by her father, although this latter part of her story has been denied by her parents and also recanted by Diane. Whatever the case may be, when she turned 14, Diane became a very rebellious and defiant young woman during her time at Moon Valley High School in Phoenix. Diane met Steve Downs, with whom she would marry in later years. The relationship was never approved by her parents. However, by 1973, at just 18 years of age, and in desperate attempt to escape her parents, Diane and Steve got married. On October 7, 1974, barely a year into their marriage, Diane gave birth to their first child, Christy. This home, however, was far from a healthy and happy one. Shortly after their relationship began, before they were married, Steve enlisted in the U.S. Navy, while Diane enrolled in Pacific Coast Baptist Bible College in California. She was expelled after a year, however, due to a tragic flaw that would eventually ruin their relationship: her infidelity. Diane was expelled for promiscuous behavior, and despite her betrayal, Steve stayed with her until they married in 1973. Motherhood, however, was far from changing the situation. On January 10, 1976, Cheryl, their second child, was born, and on December 20, 1979, Steve and Danny, their first boy, was born. However, By this time, their relationship had reached a point of no return, as little Danny was not Steve's son, the son of Mark Sager, a friend of Steve's. For this reason, and fed up with her betrayal, Steve decided to leave Elizabeth. After the divorce in 1980, Diane, who had already shown more and more signs of her unstable character, her lack of maternal instincts, and her almost total lack of empathy and patience with her children, became obsessed with finding a new partner. Steve, her ex-husband, described her as follows. Diane would forbid her children anything. If Danny asked for a little attention, she wouldn't give it. But the worst was when I caught Cheryl jumping on her bed one day. I told her it wasn't allowed. I made her sit down and think about what she had done. Cheryl was silent when she looked up and said, "Is there a gun in here?" I said no and asked her why, and she said, "I want to kill myself. My mom says I'm bad." But that wasn't all. After the divorce, Diane, now obsessed with finding a new partner, often left her children at Steve's parents' home, sometimes leaving the oldest, Christy, who was just 6, alone. Diane would escape to nightclubs and bowling alleys to meet men in 1981. During one of her escapades, she met Robert Knickerbocker, who, like many of her other post-divorce affairs, was a married man. Despite his infidelities, Robert was more attached to his wife than to Diane. After all, the man already had children with his wife, and Diane was nothing more than an intense and passionate affair for him. However, for Diane, Robert was far from having such a vague meaning. For this reason, Diane became deeply obsessed with Robert. She became so obsessed that when Robert refused to leave his wife for her, Diane couldn't get over it. Robert was not willing to leave his wife and children to raise someone else's children. He made this clear to Diane, unknowingly and unintentionally planting a terrifying idea in the mind of this disturbed woman. On the night of March 19, 1983, Diane Downs arrived at the hospital in a car filled with blood, an arm wound, and 3 dying children in the car. However, doctors realized that something was amiss. First and foremost, the mother of the children was not even close to being as devastated or traumatized by the experience. She only complained that her vacation had been ruined and that her car was a mess due to the excess blood. Little Cheryl arrived at the hospital dead, and Dr. Stephen Willahite, who attended to the children, had to work diligently to save the lives of the 2 remaining children, especially Christy. In fact, when the doctor was interviewed by ABC, he described the condition in which the girl had arrived. When he first looked at Christy, he thought she was dead. Her pupils were dilated, and she had almost no blood pressure. This doctor, who had never seen the girls before, felt deep sympathy for her. But when he told Diane, the child's mother, that the girl was in critical condition and might die, Diane not only shed a single tear, but also told the doctor that she was sure her child had suffered brain death. She felt that the child had been reduced to a vegetative state and insisted to the doctor that it was best to disconnect the girl from the life support equipment. The doctor refused, becoming convinced that something could not be right with this woman. From then on, and as a precaution, the doctors decided to monitor the injured child and ensure that Diane was not too close to them. When interviewed by the police, Diane said she had gone to visit a friend's house and that on her way back, she was approached by a man with thick eyebrows who asked for help. When she stopped to assist him, the man pulled out a gun and threatened her with it to steal her vehicle. The woman continued to give interviews to the police and the media. However, with every word that came out of her mouth, her story lost strength, beginning to crumble like a house of cards. People began to question her and doubt that she was as innocent as her words suggested, especially because at times she would change parts of her story, and when someone suggested that she might have been the aggressor of her children, she would say, "Why would I do something like that? Wouldn't I have made sure they were dead first and then shed crocodile tears?" Meanwhile, little Christy, whom the doctor had seen as pale as a corpse and whom almost everyone had given up for dead, began to slowly improve. One day, the police went with Diane to the bed of the now somewhat recovered little Christy. The girl was still fragile and couldn't speak, but as soon as she saw her mother, everything became clear. The monitor next to the girl, which was following the slow but controlled rhythm of her heart, suddenly went haywire, and the child's eyes turned white with terror. The rest of the evidence fell one after the other on Diane, burying her beyond redemption. When they checked the phone records, they discovered that the first thing she did after the attack on her children was to call her lover, Robert Knickerbocker, as if trying to say, "My children are going to die, now we can be together." When they interviewed Robert, who said he saw Diane as a woman capable of anything, the man also stated that he was tired of Diane harassing him. And regarding the murder weapon, the police eventually found out that Diane had a .22 caliber weapon, which matched the one used on the children. And although this weapon was never found, they did find boxes of ammunition matching the ones used on the children. Finally, when Christy could speak again and was asked who had attacked her and her siblings, she simply said, "My mom." On February 28, 1984, Diane was arrested as the prime suspect in the murder of her children and the serious injury of the other two, leaving both with lifelong scars. Christy had speech difficulties, and the youngest, Danny, was paralyzed from the waist down. To make matters worse, on May 8th, when her trial began, the woman appeared in an advanced state of pregnancy, likely in an attempt to generate some empathy and compassion from the jury. It was all in vain. After the trial, with over 8 months of pregnancy, Diane Downs was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole for 25 years. Although in the verdict, the judge made it clear that he had no desire for this woman to ever set foot on the streets again. So while her children, her ex-partner, and everyone who crossed paths with her throughout her life tried to rebuild their lives, the young Christy and Danny found a happy family that adopted them. Life's ironies, they were adopted by Fred Hughey, the prosecutor who presided over the case, against their mother, his wife Joan, and Rebecca, the girl Diane gave birth to shortly after her conviction, became an expert in behavioral therapy. If you think a child you know is going through some form of abuse or neglect, call 911 or any emergency number in your country. If you are in the United States, you can call 1-800-422-4453. Professional crisis counselors are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in over 170 languages. Bear in mind that Child Help Hotline crisis counselors can't make the report for you, but they can walk you through the process and let you know what to expect. Let's do our best to make sure no kids get hurt or murdered under our watch. I also I was looking up some more information, and I found that her brother also has a Facebook page. They are like rallying around her because they're saying she's innocent. You can find her Facebook page. It's just different people that believes that the police detective, they just wanted to solve the case, so they just blamed it on her. And they're saying that the daughter that said it was her mom recanted her story, and that she was coerced, and saying her mom committed the crime. So I don't know what to believe. I think she did it, but that's just my opinion. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel, and thank you for watching.
Sitting in the car is Elizabeth Diane Downs.
I go like that. I got in the car, jumped in, put the keys in. I just hit my cast. Started the car and left. The car door shut itself.